Hi, I'm Tamara and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to talk to you about bipolar disorder versus narcissistic personality disorder. And we've had a couple of people in the media lately, and I just want to know, are they who they claim to be when it comes to the disorders that they've been diagnosed with? I remember when Kanye would say, "I'm amazing, I'm a genius, I'm awesome, I'm wonderful." Usually when you hear those words, you think narcissism. You're supposed to wait for me to give you a compliment. So what is narcissistic personality disorder? Narcissists have a high sense of their own self-importance. They seek power. They can have a strong desire for admiration from other people, to put them on this high pedestal that's above everyone else. And they can also have a lack of empathy for other people. I can throw trash on someone else's yard, but you better not throw trash in mine. So the rules change when it comes to narcissism. It's hard for them to put themselves in the shoes of other people, but they can cry when it comes to their own personal agenda or when it comes to themselves. They don't play fair. Yeah, that does sound like it could be a description of him, possibly. Like when he ran on stage and he told everybody that Taylor Swift did not deserve an award, that Beyonce did. But that's sort of speaking up for someone else on their behalf. So what is that really? So let's take a look at bipolar disorder. They can go into manic stages or hypomanic stages or depression. That's what the bi stands for. It's like two different sides. It's a split. One of the things about people with bipolar is they may not like that medication that they're on, because the manic phase can be super fun. It can be exhilarating. It can be a high above highs. It feels really great to them. They can go into a stage of creativity, productivity. Depending on how high functioning you are or low functioning, some people may start millions of things and never finish because they've just got a flood of ideas that they're exploring, and it's just a great, amazing feeling. They can also go into what's called pressured speech, which is where they can't stop talking. They may talk over you. And we've seen him do that a couple of times. When he went on stage at one awards show, he got on stage and he talked and talked, and they could not shut him down. It was a timed program, but they literally could not stop him or get him off the stage because he had all these great thoughts that he wanted to share. It's like they have racing thoughts, like they can't slow it down, they can't take breaks, they've got to share it. They can go into a stage of grandiose thinking, which narcissists also have sort of this grandiose thinking where they think that they are better or above others or at a higher level or smarter or more beautiful than everyone else. With bipolar, it's not quite that way. They may go into some delusions where they think they are literally the president of a country, if they're really delusional or having some level of hallucinations. So their sense of grandiose, it might not have as evil of a slant as we think of someone with narcissism. Some people with bipolar can be scary, whereas others can be sort of not so much so. Now they're saying there are different degrees of it. It is considered a brain disorder. It's like their brain is defying them. It can be exhausting in some ways. Maybe they go into an extreme state or a complete psychotic breakdown where they think they can fly, or they have these great abilities that are above human dimension. But they can have different levels of it. I think as far as he's concerned, I do think he has a conscience for people, because when he was on TMZ and he kind of went into a phase where he was saying things that he believed to be true and a guy confronted him on it, it's almost like I've seen some other people with bipolar kind of like they can go into rages, for example, where they're extremely angry, they're mad, and you can't stop them from being in this rage and turning that feeling or that impulse off, but then somebody will come in and say, hey, that's not okay how you're acting. What's going on? And you could just see them kind of jump out of that stage. And I kind of saw him do that when the guy confronted him. He was apologetic. He went over and he wanted the guy to be okay. He didn't want the guy to be mad at him. It was please don't be angry at me. You know, I'm not trying to upset you. Can I give you a hug? Whereas if it was someone who's more narcissistic, they may have a hard time apologizing. Let me make sure that you're okay. They're gonna be more into the self. When someone is bipolar, they can go into deep states of depression where they feel really bad, where they feel really sad, where they can't get out of bed and it's so difficult to function. But then they can go into an irritability state where it's a combination of both. It's like they're kind of in the depressed mode, but then they're trying to come up and cycle into that super hyper, lots of energy mode, and it clashes like thunder. And it puts them in a state of irritability, snapping, frustrated. So bipolar has a moodiness component to it where the person can just seem extremely moody. They may not go into those extreme rages except for once a year, or it could be once a month or once a week, or it could be every day for some people. But it is their brain defying them and overtaking them. It's something that needs to be treated, but they may be given a concoction of medications to try that will not make them feel so good. And so a lot of people who are bipolar, like I remember Bobby Brown said that he was bipolar and he would self-medicate with drugs, smoking weed, doing alcohol, trying to level himself off, because I think in some ways they know that something's not quite right. So they can go into an inflated ego mode where they really truly think that they are above everyone else when it comes to talents and gifts. But again, that's the bipolar speaking. And when they're in that hypomanic state, they will do things that they won't ordinarily do if they're in another state. Like they might overspend. They may do things that's not characteristic of their personality. So I think they can be loving people. They can be very sweet. They can be very nice. It's just that when they get into different states, it can be hurtful. They could be aggressive. Just doing things that could get them into major trouble. It can get very much out of control because they can start to have some hallucinations, thinking that they're seeing things when they go into those states. They can also have difficulty with sleep because when they're depressed, they may sleep too much. When they're in the manic state, they don't sleep at all. They don't need any sleep, which is something interesting that Mariah Carey said recently in this magazine article that I bought. So in this magazine article, she talks about being diagnosed with bipolar disorder several years ago when she sort of had that breakdown, and they came out and said, you know, it was lack of sleep, overworking, all of that, and she had taken the microphone from someone, but she never disclosed that it was bipolar disorder until recently, until this article. Now, honestly, I'm not sure that I agree with her diagnosis. I actually thought that she had narcissistic personality disorder because that was what I was seeing a lot of traits. Now, here's the interesting thing. I love Mariah Carey. I have been her biggest fan. I have absolutely adored her. I have every single CD that she ever came out with. I just love her singing voice. I love her lyrics. I think she is amazing. I think she is one of the greatest of all times. But the last few years when I've seen her in interviews, it has perplexed me because there is this sense of she does act as though she has this false belief of superiority or this grandiosity to her that is not very relatable. It's like this uncomfortableness. So I thought, well, maybe she just doesn't feel comfortable doing interviews, but it would be like, hello, everyone. I am the diva. Like, I am magnificent. I am wonderful. I'm better than honey. It's just like, where is that coming from? I was sort of definitely confused by it. Now, in this article, what's interesting is the only thing she really talks about as far as bipolar is the lack of sleep. Couldn't that just be the artistic component? Don't most recording artists end up recording in the middle of the night or all hours of the day or until 4 in the morning? And I remember back then, she decided, I have to get 8 hours of sleep. That really helps. She recently did a reality show where she got to see that nicer side of her that we haven't really seen as much on interviews, but she also sort of speaks of feeling a little depressed, like, can you ever be completely happy? That could be a component of bipolar. With high-functioning narcissists, you don't always see this grandiose. Sometimes it has to be triggered. There were always issues with her childhood. There was the absent father. She would end up staying at home a lot by herself for long periods of time. When you have narcissistic personality disorder, a lot of it is thought to have developed at a younger age. One aspect of that is when you are a little child having to take on adult responsibilities, become an adult too early, you have to create this grandiose sense of self in order to survive. Like, I'm bigger than what I am. I'm stronger than what I am. I can handle this. And so it can push forth many different components of the disorder because you had to be more than what you were capable of being psychologically than where you were ready to be. And so it can do a lot of psychological damage. Her sister, who's been in the media lately, again, to me, she clearly shows aspects of having borderline personality disorder. She's had heavy drug use and lots of different issues and has been homeless and not had money. And she claims that there was a lot of chaos in their household when they were growing up. So I think Mariah shows more signs of being narcissistic. I think a clear example of that was when she was on American Idol. I remember Nicki Minaj came out in public and said, "It has been an awful experience. Wait until you see how Mariah treats me." Mariah was constantly putting her down, constantly attacking her, trying to make Nicki look stupid. It was just this ugliness, this narcissism that was coming out. They said that Mariah had said, "Do not put any females on this panel with me," because I think she wanted to stand out. She wanted to be the female diva. And so she saw Nicki as a huge threat to her identity. And a lot of it just did not make sense. So you can kind of go back and watch some footage of some of that. And it's like, wow, why is she attacking her? Why can't you both speak your opinions on certain people? But it was like this nasty competition. So someone with narcissism can have extreme sarcasm. They can put people down, try to make people feel inferior to who they are. Their sarcasm can be very, very biting. You know, it's one thing to be sarcastic, but these people use sarcasm in a way that is very hurtful to other people, and it tends to be extreme. They can be biting, they can make harsh comments, they can be very difficult to get along with when it comes to the personality. It's really something that we ought to have great compassion with, but it's just hard. Please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching.